This week on Filthy Hope.
A few friends of mine, but one in particular who works in retail, was saying how stressed they are about, they work at JB Hi-Fi.
Right.
What like this time of year is like working in retail, especially with like Black Friday sales.
Oh, yeah.
They're just like, I am really worried that I'm going to have a breakdown because of how awful people are in stores.
Really?
At this time of year.
This podcast is a Uniting Heart and Soul production and was recorded on land that was stolen nearly 250 years ago. On this particular episode, we recorded on the land occupied by the Gadigal clan of the Eora Nation. We pay our respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, and we acknowledge that sovereignty over these lands was never ceded. It always was and always will be Aboriginal land. At Filthy Hope, we humbly contribute to the ancient and ongoing traditions of storytelling when we share stories on this podcast.
Hello and welcome to Filthy Hope. If it's your first time, welcome. My name's Jonty and joining me is Rev Ness.
Hey, Jonty, how are you?
How are you?
Hello, my friends. I'm
It's a loaded question for both of us at the moment. Yeah. Welcome if it's your first time here. This podcast spends time in the grey spaces where Jesus, life and culture intersect. So I'll ask you again because this is, I think, going to be the first 10 or so minutes of this podcast. How are you, Ness?
Oh, Jonty, I want to ask you first, how are you, brother?
Well, people that are listening can probably hear my husky voice.
Yeah, it sounds a bit sexy, but you're a pastor now.
I am, true.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, first one recording since the commissioning. So yeah, there you go. We need to update the logo.
We do.
Pastor
Jonty.
Yeah. But yeah, you can probably hear I've been a bit unwell. We had a few episodes that we've had to cancel recording since the last one we recorded because I physically couldn't talk. I've had tonsillitis and
cactus, man.
I reckon because my chiropractor hearing how my symptoms have gone and then just talking to you before we recorded on reflection possibly might have had COVID as well at some point because I've been unwell for almost, at time of recording, coming on 2 weeks now.
Yeah, and really sick.
Yeah, like out for days at a time.
Terrible.
Still very fatigued. So if...
and COVID brain.
Yeah.
I'm watching you.
With the magic of editing, you won't have heard the 3 attempts at the intro.
I think we should use this as
Yeah, I'm cooked. I'm so tired all the time, which is...
that's a part of the COVID thing.
Yeah.
It's one of the blessings, isn't it?
Yeah. And like part of me... Because when I had COVID a year ago now, maybe a year and a half ago, the symptoms were very different.
Right.
So I did the testing and it was all negative and definitely just assumed that it was just the tonsillitis and the infection associated with that. But... in reflection, there might have been a bit of COVID as well because COVID has been flaring up again around Sydney.
There's been a big wave in Sydney. That's right. So I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
And you're operating a little bit with COVID fog brain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
I've just been sitting in front of the TV playing Elden Ring in my spare time because
fantastic.
I don't have the brain capacity to do
anything else.
Much else at the moment.
It's awful.
Checking the boxes and playing Elden Ring.
No, I'm sorry that you feel so lousy.
Yeah. It is what it is. Yeah. And you've been unwell as well. I want to hear your story.
Yeah. So I wake up on your commissioning morning with a really sore ear, like weird, really sore ear. And I wake up and I'm looking at my bedside table and there's a cup of tea from the night before and some tiny teddies because I'd got into bed, it says, the night before. I have this pre-sermon ritual that I do. I have an early night, take my sleepy time tea to bed and I take my little bag of tiny teddies because I'm a freaking 5-year-old.
Love a tiny teddy.
Yeah. Do you like tiny teddies?
Oh, if I when I'm in the office over at the other building, there's a stash of tiny. Are those? Because I know theoretically they're probably for kids' church, right?
They are.
Do you ever just stash some tiny teddies out of the cupboard, or just me?
No, I like them at night time.
Yeah,
so I've got to be really desperate.
Sometimes, if I forget lunch and it's an office day, I'll just grab a cheeky little tiny teddy.
Yeah. So cute. So I'm looking at the Teds and I wake up in the morning with this sore ear and I notice there's a couple of little ants climbing on the TEDs. And then, isn't it amazing what your brain does? So my brain goes, oh, I wonder if some of those little ants have climbed in my ear and that's why my ear's sore.
Yeah.
So I get up and then I start doing, shake out water out of my ear, that feeling when you've been in the pool and you've dived in and you've got an ear full of water. So I'm shaking the ear, hoping that the family of ants will climb out if I do some gravitational shakeage. Anyway, it crackles and hurts, and every time I lower down, I go down to buckle up my sandals to get ready for work, and I've got massive pain in the ear. I think, stuff it, I've got to get to Jonty's induction. I'm just going to go and his commissioning. I'm just going to go and take some Panadol and off we go. Go to church. We do have a splendid day doing your event. It was just such a blessing. And doesn't your dad preach a storm?
Yeah.
Amazing. Come home and ear is progressively getting worse. I have an early night, not feeling well myself. So I'm thinking I've had a bit of whatever the Cornfords had, and I get a bit feeling dodge. Earaches, more Panadol, get up Monday morning, heavy duty earache. Start to get a bit of deafness in that ear. I feel like there's somebody's plugged my ear with cotton wool.
Yeah.
And I can't, it's muffled sound.
It's all the ants, mate.
So, don't joke, Jonty, because then I've decided not just one or two have climbed in, but the whole family are nesting. So then I get through my day, I smash out a sermon, I'm feeling tragic ring the GP and I say, I need to see someone. So I go down and see him. So obviously when I go and see my doctor, the doctor knows that I have a mental health issue. Mental health.
Shows up on
suffer anxiety.
On the file.
Yeah. I don't know what shows up, but shit shows up because he says to me, oh, Ness, good to see you. How can I help you today? And I say, well, I think some ants have climbed in my ear. And he looks at me. He looks at me like this is the day that she has to go off in the straitjacket. I'm going to call in 000. She's fucking lost it. And he looks at me and says to me really condescendingly like I'm 5. And he says, because I tell him the whole tiny teddy thing, just like I've told you.
Yeah.
And he looks at me and he says, Ness, what makes you think that the ants have climbed in the ear? I said, well, they were on the teddies and I've been asleep for a bunch of hours and I think they've climbed in, but I don't think it's one or two. I reckon I need to serve an eviction notice because these suckers have multiplied overnight because my ear is so sore. Can you please have a look? And more condescending, he says, well, why don't I do this? Like I'm a kid. I'll look in the good ear first and we'll just get a baseline. And then we'll look in the ant ear. And I'm starting to think, you're a bit of a tool. You'll be laughing when you see the farm growing in my right ear. Anyway, he looks in my ear. He gets a humble mode about him and he says, well, Ness, no ants, but you've got a raging middle ear infection going on in there. So, script of antibiotics and the whole routine. So I felt, are you wishing you hadn't asked me how I am? I struggled. I've sort of been struggling last week myself with ear pain and coping and how it is. You know how when you are not 100% firing your window of tolerance.
Yeah.
And everything feels a bit harder and stressed and everything gets a little bit stretched.
100%.
Yeah.
It just unlocked a memory in my head playing cricket I think it was in high school. And, sometimes, I don't know if this happened to you, but you're like riding a bike or or even just walking somewhere and all of a sudden, you swallow a fly.
Oh.
Like it just flies in.
Oh, I've sniffed one up my nose.
Yeah.
And then it runs down into your throat because it's gone right through your tubes.
Yeah. And who knows whether or not I actually swallowed it. But I feel it hit the back of my throat.
Yeah,
and you're like, this isn't good, right? And it probably did just fly off.
No, you probably swallowed the thing.
Who knows, right? But I'm out in the field playing cricket and that's a, 3 to 4 hour, it's a whole day.
37 degrees.
Yeah, it was hot and we're out in the field, we're fielding. And 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour later, I start to feel really unwell, in my stomach. And then, at the next drinks break, I say to the coach at the time, I was like, something's up. He's like, oh, what's happened? I'm like, I think I swallowed a fly. He's like, shut up. Like, even if you did swallow a fly, that's not going to give you a stomach ache. I'm like, yeah, sure. But like and at one point it got to like stabbing pains
it's
kind of
actually
thing.
a wasp.
Yeah. Trying to get out. Yeah. And so I don't know if it was like simply like I did swallow a fly or if it was actually just like the
psychosomatic illness.
Yeah, what is it? Is COVID brain creeping? And I can't think of the name for when you placebo effect. Where
yes.
Just because I thought I had, my stomach started like
feeling unwell.
Feeling unwell. Yeah, I don't know the point of that story, but
how many people just write into us? How many of you have sniffed or swallowed a fly?
Yeah.
Not sniffed other stuff.
That's right.
But just just swallowed a fly. Yeah. Oh dear. Hey. Coming up, while I was not brilliant over the last couple of days at night, I would finish my work and then sit and scroll because we've got all these sales on at the moment. Have you noticed on socials all the big sales for Black Friday coming up? It's like phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
And with the whole Christmas lead up, it's just off the charts, isn't it? Mm. So I've been buying Christmas presents because I can get them cheaper.
Nice and cheap, yeah.
It's quite amazing, isn't it? And the whole Christmas thing, I don't know about you, Jonty, but it causes stress. The spending thing.
Yeah, but like not just with the spending. A friend of mine, a few friends of mine, but one in particular who works in retail, was saying how stressed they are about. They work at JB Hi-Fi.
Right.
What like this time of year is like working in retail, especially with like Black Friday sales.
Oh yeah.
They're just like, I am really worried that I'm going to have a breakdown because of how awful people are in stores.
Really?
At this time of year.
Yeah, how extraordinary. Like a desperation? Do they describe it
or
as?
like if something isn't there that they want, they just lose their shit and start blowing up at staff.
Wow.
And like people just turn into
monsters.
Crazy people at this time of year in retail.
Yeah, it's quite extraordinary, isn't it? I've just find the whole lead up, like we're, a good month away now, 4 weeks I think till Christmas, right? Something like that.
Something like that. Far out. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
It's just hit me how close it is.
Yeah, like it's full on. And I think of the whole gift thing and the saving up for presents and all the expectations that are around Christmas time and the giving to, because that's what it's about, isn't it? It's about giving gifts to one another. I just find that it creates an exponential amount of stress. And again, I'd like to hear out from the listeners. Are you under stress at this time? I know I get under stress this time. Can I afford that? How many things do I need to buy? And what are we doing? Where are we going? Is everybody going to be nice to each other at Christmas time? Are we having lunch together? Are we having dinner together? It's really hard.
Yeah. We're in the process of figuring out where and with which families we're doing Christmas as well, which as my generation, my family get older and have partners, it becomes more and more complicated in terms of who's having dinner with who at what time where.
Yep.
It's just a nightmare.
Yeah.
Like, and trying to make sure that everyone's happy. And I know my family situation is relatively okay in terms of managing that stuff, but
super functional people.
But I mean in terms of logistically figuring out who's going to be where for which
event,
different family groups and whatever. But I won't say who it is, but close friends of, I'll tell you off mic afterward, but close friends of ours have a really challenging situation with family who live long distance. All of a sudden people feeling upset because they feel left out or people aren't making the right calls to meet the right expectations for the right people. And all of a sudden Christmas not only is it incredibly stressful, but it's actually really like anguish inducing and
hurtful.
Quite hurtful for
people. It is,
yeah.
I haven't had a Christmas with my father since my children were really little. And I think it comes about because when you are a child of a divorced parents obviously make a decision, they get divorced, but then the parents want to have their lives normally operating, yet they divorced and they stuffed the family unit. They made decisions which absolutely, drew a wedge in the middle of the family unit, never to be the same again, right? And Mum says to me, so what are your plans for Christmas? And I love being able to say, well, it's a work day for me, Mum.
Yeah.
It's one of my busiest work days.
For sure.
And this year it's a perler because we've got Sunday services on Christmas Eve and then
right
the
next
next day we've got Christmas Day. So it's feeling a bit like Easter with, the back-to-back services that we smash out over Easter time, right? And I get to say, look, it's a work day. And I live in a really beautiful part of Sydney and I've got a great home, and to host stuff, I love hosting things and having friends over. But Jonty, after doing the whole Christmas service thing and working that day.
And the day before.
Yeah, I'm buggered.
Yeah.
I'm so buggered that all I'm going to feel like doing is just getting home and putting on some sandals and, a comfy frock and sitting on the deck with a hat and my sunnies and having a glass of bubbles really and a bit of cheese.
Yeah.
I'm not going to feel like a conversation, quite frankly. It's a bit bloody sad.
Or like the effort and logistics of hosting.
I can't.
Yeah.
I can't pull that off anymore. I made a decision. And so I said to Mum, so what are you doing for Christmas? I feel like a bastard. And I said, well, Mum, it just came out of my mouth. I said, well, Mum, you fucked it. You divorced Dad. You were shagging the fruit man. You decided to leave my father. And then that's it. And since then, Christmas has been stuffed. All the big family events. She said, she laughed. She was pretty gracious and she laughed. She said, yeah, I suppose I did, didn't I? I said, yeah, you did, Mum. So I don't know about Christmas. I'm working. And that's it. That's my conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And the fact of the matter is that that's obviously specific to your situation, but it's so common that Christmas is a time at which it's especially obvious to people where the challenges are in their families, because the whole thing is we're meant to come together and celebrate as family units. Traditionally, that's the kind of what people, the expectation of what Christmas is.
Well, that's what the Hallmark movies show.
Yeah, that's right.
Don't they?
But for whatever reason, whether it's divorce or death or all sorts of things,
pain, abuse,
whatever sort of relationship breakdown there might be, all of a sudden it's hard already, but then it's almost like Christmas just twists the knife a little bit more.
Or there's this creepy bastard auntie or uncle that you just, the handsy uncle. Have you got one of those? And you wouldn't know.
I don't, no.
Oh, mate, the handsy uncle.
But I think to some degree you don't choose your family, right?
No.
And so there's always people in your extended family that you get along with more than others.
Yes.
Whether or not to the degree of some of those extremes. There are even like I think about like church services on Christmas morning. Some of the people you talk to that you don't or that you see that come to church once a year and are super chummy and want to give you a hug and say, oh, how you doing? It's like there's just weird expectations and traditions around how we engage with each other around Christmas that are built on a root of something really wonderful and beautiful, but when it's built on top of something that is broken, can feel a little bit weird and conflicting around Christmas time.
Yeah, it makes me actually really sad when I stop and think about it. I set up our Christmas tree and we do our Mariah Carey, musical
video
in November.
Yeah.
And that's really a high point for me. And then it gets to Christmas Day. By Christmas night, I want to pack it all away because I am done.
Yeah.
And I actually think now that I'm externally processing with you, thank you, I should pay you $180 now for the counselling. I'm actually quite sad and hurt about the whole Christmas palaver that goes on, particularly just in my family context, right? About my father, I think I've decided this year I normally angst and feel sad that I'm not going to see him on Christmas Day because his wife always selects her family and her 3 precious kids over Dad's 2 kids.
Right.
For Christmas.
And
so I never have Christmas with Dad.
Longer distance away, right? Am I remembering that correctly? Or
No.
No?
No, the daughters, Dad lives in Orange.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
but Dad's wife's kids, you know, one's in Sydney, one's in Queensland, one's up in Trundle. So they're spread out all over the place. And, yeah, I can't go there even if I got an invite because I have to work.
Yeah.
So it's really hard. Not that they ever invite us. So I'm left always sad. So I've decided this year I'm actually not going to reach out to my dad and say, Dad, what are you doing for Christmas? Because he'll say, I don't know yet, mate. But he does know what the situation is. He'll spend it with his wife's family and his wife of 27 years or something. You know, knock yourself out.
And I think it's interesting to me that, well, I wonder if a lesson to be learnt from the way that Christmas kind of brings up all of these family, let's call them tensions, for everyone to some degree or another, there's a lesson there about how we should actually be treating our family throughout the whole year.
Yeah.
And the reflection of, well, for whatever reason, in both directions, Christmas isn't a Band-Aid that can fix.
No.
Like, relationships actually require work constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think, you know, Christmas, my experience of Christmas has largely been really wonderful. And, like, I have family that live interstate, and so I have memories associated with Christmas that are associated with seeing family who I don't see very often. But then the challenge is, like, and obviously interstate is one thing, but then with family that is more local, having that big Christmas connection, wonderful. Taking that as a reminder and an opportunity to maintain those relationships over time.
Yeah, if they're important to you.
Absolutely. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, exactly. I think the last extended family Christmas I had with with all the aunties and uncles and the cousins on my maternal side was after I started talking about my child abuse and never got an invite again. I didn't go. Couldn't bear to see them, I wasn't believed. So I just went, I'm not doing that shit with you. I'm not going to play pretendies with you at Christmas time. So I think Christmas is a tricky I sound like a broken vessel, don't I? I feel sad just talking about it, actually, to think about that, the sadness of the maternal side and then the rejection on the paternal side. There was no wonder when my sister says to me this year, are you going to be in Australia this year for Christmas? And I say, yeah, I am, mate. And then we had a conversation and made plans. And she's right to ask because out of my 34 years of marriage, most of those years I've spent overseas.
Right.
Because I run away. And for many of those years, I'd run away to Rob's family. And I would run away before I was a minister every single year. And we'd go to Kentucky, we'd have white Christmases. And I seem to be able to cope in his family dysfunction easier than I can cope in mine. And we'd have the most beautiful Christmas. I loved it. Took the kids there. It was just an epic, love-filled event of beautifulness, you know, and the generosity of spirit of Rob's grandma, the way that they wrap presents over there, you know, it's just like a Hallmark Christmas movie. They're all perfectly in a box because they buy boxes to
with
put
the ribbons
and the whole thing. And I'll never forget those Christmases in the early days. There would be piles of presents like stacked high, and that was just for me, given to me, you know. And I in the 80s, I wasn't wrapping presents in boxes. I don't think we were even doing that in Australia, unless you were really fancy, I think. I would just wrap up the thing, whatever it was, and so then it made an odd shape.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like an odd thing. But they would buy beautiful things and put them into a box with tissue paper and then wrap the box so it was like this perfect square.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember being just blown away by that and the generosity of the gift giving, I suppose. And it made me feel valued, I suppose, and really loved by them when I didn't feel that at home.
I think there's something to be said about this idea of found families as well. Because like we've said and like we've both outlined, we our relationships with our families across the board for everyone are always complex. It's always nuanced. And I think that one of my favorite like little subgenres of fiction are like stories about finding your tribe, like found family stories.
Beautiful.
And so, I mean, something my partner and I have done for a few years in a row now, I think, maybe 2 years, is do like an orphan Christmas style thing, which is, you know, on Christmas Day after, like in the evening, you just bring any leftovers. We've hosted the last couple, but I've certainly been to a few before that where it's just, it's not a family thing. It's after everyone's done the family thing, you come and hang out and eat your leftovers and watch a shitty Christmas movie and
It's the best.
drink and do whatever
So
in the
good.
evening with your mates.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know. I like that. Obviously, I'm not discounting the importance of family, but I think finding your tribe and your found family, the families that you do decide on, that's really powerful as well. And I really love spending some of the Christmas experience
With your tribe.
with friends,
Yeah.
with close friends, with crew. Yeah,
I agree, 100%. It's really great because often with the friends, there's not that attachment, dysfunctional, familial crap that can go on because it's founded on other things, isn't it? So often some of our greatest friends, one couple in particular, Andy and Kay, I met Kay at the gym. So we had all the gym stuff in common and then we started travelling together and there was that beautiful connection. And so then you find the relationship and build it on like interests. And so it's lovely. And then you can safely talk about your family dysfunction without judgment or reprisal because you're not in it, but you can empathise with them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then other friends, Kim and Mark, that relationship got founded in church years ago, our first family church experience, before Aurora was even born. And so we've travelled the growing up of the kid experience, a bit like you do at Tuck with your families there. Kim and Mark are like our tribe. Yeah, very much. And we get together after the dysfunction on Boxing Day.
Yeah.
And we do that. And there's just like I think a relief that Christmas is over. And it's how I feel anyway. I feel bad saying that.
Oh, but I think like that is a real thing, and it's a psychological reality that and there's a bunch of stuff written about this, about how the anticipation for the thing is actually the thing you enjoy, not the thing itself.
Yeah.
So like I love the week leading up to Christmas.
Yeah.
And part of that is to do with my own community's
Prep.
we do this big holiday
Christmas
program
spectacular.
and I'm usually involved in that most years, but that also involves, it's a time when the people my age who don't attend this holiday program but are involved in running the thing, the evenings and the mornings around them are just such an amazing time of community and the excitement of, like it's Christmas time, it's the end of the year.
It's beautiful. And you're with kids.
Absolutely. Yeah. And to me, I think I'm the same. Like you get to the Christmas day itself and it's to me, it pales in comparison to that week in the lead up to Christmas, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a school chaplain, I was school chaplain at MLC before I came over to Woollahra, and we had already completed Advent by the first week of December. So then, and then school ends sort of around the 8th of December, or you've got your big events on for school, speech night and those sort of things at that end of that first week, all of that. And so then you hit December in the church and, mate, Jesus is almost 5 by the time I get to Christmas Day.
He's running around already.
Liturgically in my brain.
Yeah.
Because I'd already had the kid, and the stars and the manger and the sheep and the angels, that business was happening back in November.
Yeah.
So I used to find it actually even harder in those days when I was working and flipping the liturgy far earlier than we do in the church, just because of the nature of the school calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned this before on maybe this time last year on the podcast, but one of my favourite Christmas traditions has almost nothing to do with Christmas.
Right.
Is the late on Christmas Eve after the big service. I think we're up to the 4th year in a row that we're doing it, and it's grown every year. We just go to, it's always at the same person's house, and we watch Love Actually.
Yeah.
Whether or not we're actually watching Love Actually or it's just on. And it's just, I think to me, that is when I think about what the quote unquote spirit of Christmas, whatever the hell that is, that like as much as Christmas Day itself, seeing family and the whole, and the church service and the whole thing, that to me is just as important and valuable and memorable in terms of what I think Christmas is about for me in a aesthetic way, not so much in a theological way, because that's a whole other conversation, which we will have.
Yeah, as
when
we
get
approach,
to Christmas.
yeah. And I suppose in the lead up, it's probably, you talk about the spirit of Christmas. If we think of the spirit in words and we think of hope, peace, joy, and love, and those 4 words, and they're the synonymous words liturgically we use in the lead up to
often
Advent,
with the 4
right?
weeks of Advent.
Yeah, the 4 weeks.
With the candles as well.
All of that, yeah. So if we think of those 4 words, I think it's probably in the busyness and the craziness and the commercialism of have I got enough presents and what are we doing and are you all being nice to each other and the dysfunction that can erupt in families, I think it's probably important not to wait till we actually even hit Advent, but maybe start activating the hope, peace, joy, love, peace now. Start thinking it now, because it might actually be the very key to helping you transit these next 4 weeks that can actually build and be quite stressful for heaps of families and for individuals for all sorts of different reasons.
Yeah.
You know, maybe.
Yeah, I think, it's one of the things that always strikes me every year. It's like these, so many of the things that we associate with Christmas, whether that's in church and in a theological sense, but also just like culturally, are great things that we could be doing all year round.
Yeah.
And largely, I mean, from a Christian perspective, form the basis of Christian living, the birth of Christ and what that calls us into action for in that month of Advent with the peace, hope, love, joy, whatever the things are. I think they're all like things that would only transform your life to the better if it was something that you were mindful and practiced
all the time.
All the time.
Yeah,
it's
that's right.
It's a little bit how I feel about things like Valentine's Day.
Yep.
Obviously, there's something really wonderful about showing big
Love.
shows of affection to whether it's like, you know, someone
Partner?
someone that you want to be a partner with, or like in that, I remember in high school that was for Valentine's Day you could like pay for a year 12 to send a chocolate and a rose with a note to someone.
That.
Like, and that whole like
so cool.
that thing,
anticipation,
but also but for people in relationships, but at the same time, my whole thing has always been like, well, why do I need a special day to show that person that I love them? Like it should just be the reality of our life together
and how you operate. That's
and
right.
I kind of feel a little bit that way about some of the Christmas stuff as well.
Yeah.
What I would love to talk about, and what I think we'll have a really interesting conversation about, is with the whole gifts and giving thing. I find it really stressful now as an adult, just with the whole budgeting thing of like, you know, you want to make sure that the people that are meaningful in your life, that you give them gifts that are worth how you think you want to acknowledge them.
Yeah.
But like, I'm a young adult living in Sydney in 2023.
I know.
And
on a pastor's income.
And it feels like half my income goes to petrol these days. Like, and so I find, and this kind of loops back, we were just talking about like with Black Friday sales coming up and the whole consumerism element of it. It's so easy every year for Christmas to just turn into this like endless shopping list.
So if gift giving is about generosity of heart and not actually the financial outlay, right? Then I think about that great story in the Bible, you know, the woman with the 2 mites. it was interesting when I was in Jerusalem, I was busting to see what a mite was. And it's actually this very smallest coinage that the ancients used to use in Jesus' time. And I found them in little antique stores. They're not in circulation anymore as currency, but you can actually, lots of people buy them and put gold around them and wear them around their neck on a chain. And they're tiny. Like do you remember our little 1 cent coin?
Yep.
Do you remember that? A bit smaller than a 1 cent coin,
right.
And really rugged and lumpy looking, quite fantastic, really. And now a mite will set you back sort of $700 for a tiny little mite. So do you remember that story? This woman who's, I believe, is a widow. I don't think there's any reference to how many kids she has, but she's clearly doing it tough. And she takes her last amount of cash and puts it into the offering plate. And Jesus watches on. He's standing by at the treasury at the synagogue, clustered with his buddies, the disciples there, and he uses this as an opportunity, like a teaching opportunity to teach them. Because apparently I read that the Pharisees used to regularly rip off old people and particularly widows. That's still going on, isn't it, these days? Nothing's really changed. Not the Pharisees doing that, but elder abuse and elder financial abuse. We hear about that quite a bit, don't
on
we?
the news.
And scams, actually. That's right. Financial scams. So anyway, this, as the story goes, the Bible according to Ness, the widow takes her 2 little mites and she goes into synagogue and she's going to give her offering to God. And in the day, they didn't have an offering plate, Jonty, but they used these like copper receptacles that were like funnel shaped, almost a bit like it's described like a trumpet shape. And so can you imagine putting 2 little copper coins into a copper receptacle, and it wouldn't make a huge noise, would it? It'd make like a little tinkle. But if you went in and you had lots of coin to put in, because they didn't have notes or they didn't tap Apple or Square, they had to stick it in the funnel. I imagine if you gave lots of coins, it would make a bit of a racket.
Like when you empty the recycling bin with all the bottles.
Yes, like literally that, right? So she goes into synagogue, she pops in just the 2 mites, and Jesus uses it as a teaching moment and says to the boys, this woman has given everything. She has given out of the generosity of her heart. The others have given out of their wealth and sacrificed nothing, yet she has given everything. And I wonder, at Christmas time, we're not expected to give everything to everyone because we can't. Got mortgages to pay and bills to pay and all of that. But the generosity of heart is probably where I'm going with this. When we give a gift, we need to probably receive the gift that somebody gives us with the mindset that this person has given me this beautiful gift. And it's like a heart gift to us at Christmas time. It's not about what it costs or what style it is, or was it from a fancy shop or a non-fancy shop. It's the heart of the giver. Do you think?
Yeah, and on the other side of it, as the giver, do you ever find yourself like just walking around a shop? You've got like 2 people left on your list, and you're just looking at shit that you wouldn't
normally,
ever be like, are they going to like this? I don't know.
The time.
And like at that point, it's just about checking the box of having bought them something.
Yes. And have I got enough money to do it?
Yeah, and actually going, okay, well, knowing my relationship with this person, what's something that I actually want to gift them?
Right.
And money will likely play a part in it, but that's not the thing that dictates what you get them. It probably has an influence. Like you're not going to, I want to give my best friend a Lamborghini. You can't afford a Lamborghini. You never that's never like hyperbolized example, but like instead of going, I have to buy this person something for Christmas because then it's more about
Obligation. Yeah, as opposed to gifting.
actually thinking about what I want to give them as a gift. Yeah.
It's really big, you know, and I think in going back to the story with the woman and the 2 mites, I mean, God looked at her because of her heart and her grace, and he valued her so much. He valued her heart because she gave exponentially beyond what she could afford. She gave like a king, did she not? You know, it was the other dudes, the Pharisees, and Jesus uses that as an example, you know, give out of their wealth, but it doesn't even like hit the edges, does it?
And they make a big show of it.
Big
as well,
show
yeah.
and a big racket as they're putting all their coins in.
Yeah.
Oh, can you imagine it? Look at me, look at me. I'm so important.
Yeah, and then it gets to that point of like, are you giving because you actually want to give something to the person or to the charity or to the organisation or to like whatever the mechanics of what you are giving and who to?
Yeah.
Are you doing it because you actually think that that's a worthwhile thing to do, or are you doing it so that people can to be seen doing it?
I know. I love that about secret philanthropists, you know, and they give generously out of their wealth, and they don't want anything in return, and they don't actually want to be they don't want anybody to know. It's all kept very secret. I love that, because I think certainly in God's kingdom as we know it, like, it works differently, doesn't it? God's treasury is found in heaven. There's plenty of Bible stories about that, isn't there?
Yeah, and I want to say it's also not just financial.
No.
You know, a bit of a buzzword at the moment, but like our biggest asset is our time.
Yeah.
Our most valuable asset is our time. And so giving of our time to people as well.
Absolutely.
Are you doing it so people see you doing the thing?
Right.
Or are you just doing it because you value...
Obligation,
like,
tick the box.
Yeah. Or is it more of the, this is something I value and want to invest my time into, regardless of whether or not people see me doing it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because I think if you're thinking about not gingers, but God's divine economy, the size of the gift or the amount of time, if we're talking time, has absolutely zero consequence, because what happens is, what matters the most, I believe, is the size of the heart that's driving the giver, isn't it?
And the intention behind the gift.
Yeah, exactly, because I think that's what God cares about. And
I know from experience as well, I'm not going to call anyone out, but like, and I'm sure you've experienced this as well, and maybe listeners have as well, when you receive a gift from someone and you're just like, what? Why did you think that
I would
that was a thing for me? Like, and not in the sense of like they're actually trying to give you something, but you can immediately go, oh, they thought that they needed to get me something, and so they've got me
a thing.
And it's like, it's a nice gesture, but that thing of the heart behind the gift just isn't there, and you kind of go, well, thanks.
Yeah.
I'd rather and I think this is more of a challenge for this isn't me calling those people out in a way like, oh, you need to get me better gifts, but it's like, well, if you're just doing it because you think you need to, then just don't do it. Like I know for me, I would actually prefer if in that situation someone goes, hey, I wanted to give you a gift, I wasn't actually sure what to give you,
right?
So let's go out for dinner.
Right.
Bang. Like that, to me, there's heart and intent behind that, because, you know, and what that can lead to 6 months later, you've had 4 dinners together.
And do you think it links in, Jonty, to your language of love? Because,
probably, yeah.
Yeah, because I wonder if if one of your languages of love is being generous and gift-giving, and giving to people, then that's going to be really important for you, isn't it? So you're going to love doing that and receiving that. I've got a story to tell. Aurora has a significant person in her life who she finds so hard to buy a gift for. This person is impossible. She's super fancy, very wealthy, and has everything she needs in this world. There's nothing Aurora feels that she can buy this person. Nothing. And she normally just buys her a bottle of Verve because she knows she likes the Verve and that just ticks a box, and there's never any great fanfare over the fact that Aurora's bought the bottle of Verve. It's just like Aurora gets to tick a box and the recipient gets to receive it and almost like has a receiving box tick as well. It's the strangest thing. And it's caused a real problem for Aurora. And so I say, oh, that's not possible. Surely this is ridiculous. Let's go shopping together. So I take her down to Mitch and Mark's, just yell out to Mitch and Mark's down in Newport. They were the winners of the block. Terrific guys. They've become my buddies down there. I love going and visiting them on my day off. And I said, we'll bump into Mitch and Mitch will tell you, find you a gift for the woman that has everything. And so he does. He finds Aurora this magnificent, bedazzled drink bottle that has beautiful bedazzling all over this thing. It's like the sort of thing that it's just like an epic drink bottle. Ridiculous in a sense, but beautiful in another sense. He said, darling, she'll love it. She absolutely think that's beautiful, smashing gift. What's there not to love about that gift? So Aurora says, Mum, do you think? I said, I think it's a bloody great idea. So they wrap it up beautifully, put bows and stickers in it. It just looks like the best bloody gift, right? So we get home that night and Rora's ready to give it to the person in a couple of days because we're having them over. And Aurora's partner says there's no way she's going to like that gift. You cannot possibly give her that gift. She'll actually be offended. She'll laugh. She'll laugh and think you're taking the piss out of her. So Aurora burst into tears. It caused a whole upset and we had this whole conversation about gift giving. And I said, oh, that is absolutely stupid. She said, I'm had it, Mum. I'm sick of this. This is just so ridiculous. I should have got the Verve. I wish you hadn't told me to get the bedazzled drink bottle. Then I felt terrible. I'll buy the bedazzled drink bottle off you. Don't worry, babe. I'll give it to somebody because it's a bloody great gift. Don't worry. And so then Aurora says, I'm not going to get her a gift for her birthday ever again. I'm done. I'm just totally done. And she meant it. She said, if I can't give her anything, I'm not going to give her anything at all. So anyway, these people come over to our place for drinks and cheese on the deck and a really lovely afternoon. It was really fascinating. She walks into our home and on the kitchen table put a beautiful bag and in it had a bottle of Verve and a really expensive bottle of red. That's, $200 worth of booze put onto my kitchen bench with no, here's a gift for you, thank you for having us, almost with zero fanfare, zero care factor, zero. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was most interesting to watch her do gift giving. So at the end of the night, I was able to chat to Aurora about it and I said, I've got a feeling that they place zero importance on gift giving. They don't care about it. It's not a thing. They don't care for your reaction once they've given a gift, nor do they care to receive a gift. It's just not important to them. And it was really culturally unusual to experience that. Because I certainly have thought that Aurora has had this out of proportion. It's been going on for a couple of years now. And I thought, surely this isn't the case. And to watch this actually happen and to be the recipient of a gift that was really not a gift, it was just plonked on my table, was an interesting insight into human behaviour and how we then can judge people by the size or the intent of a gift by whatever means. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. Yeah, and that weird, that sense of when you receive a gift, especially from someone like in that situation where gift giving is something that is not second nature, but bringing in $200 worth of wine.
Oh my Lord! See, that's extravagant in my brain.
But then I find that challenging in a situation like that. Well, then am I obliged to then give something back to the same value? Like,
right? Yeah,
which is
exactly.
that very consumerist,
it is
capitalist mindset of the monetary value being of great importance in terms of balancing it out.
Yeah, and I got a sense that she didn't think anything of it at all. So then at the end of the night, I picked up the bag and as they were leaving, we'd had the fabulous time. They're just the best. That we had such a fun afternoon. I handed the bag and I said, "Oh, why don't you take this with you? We didn't get to drink it. You take it with you.
Yeah.
And you must come for a sleepover next time and stay the night. And we'll have a terrific time, so you don't have to travel all the way home." And then she got really upset with me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
No. Really chastised. No, that's for you.
Interesting.
It was so interesting. It was so interesting because it hadn't been given to me with any love or gifting.
There was no attention drawn to it.
No. It was bizarre. So I don't really know, was it like me giving 2 bottles of Sprite? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and therefore I wouldn't expect anybody to go into a fanfare over 2 bottles of Sprite. I just don't know. I'm quite perplexed. And I just analysed it as potentially their language of love is just not acts of service and giving of gifts. And that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the lady with the 2 copper coins, her language of love was definitely the giving.
And the really deeply challenging thing that I find in that story is it can be interpreted as don't let money get in the way of you doing extravagant acts of service and kindness and
right
for the kingdom. That's deeply challenging for me as someone who is deeply anxious constantly about finances.
Oh yeah.
To be like when I see you hear stories about mega pastors being like, oh yeah, and then I just gave this person a $30,000 tip after my coffee in the diner because I felt like the Holy Spirit was calling me to, and that put me in a really tricky position financially for the next month, but I just did it, and praise God, God came through, and this then happened the week after that meant that $30,000 was covered and blah, blah, blah. Like to me, I hear those stories and like I'd get so anxious. I'm like, but what if...
Please don't speak to me like that, God.
What if you just like then blew 30 in that weirdly specific... I don't know if that actually happened. That was just a hypothetical. But like you blow the $30,000 and then you can't pay rent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or you can't pay your mortgage repayment. Or, you can't afford food that week. Like, a friend of mine has a story which hopefully at some point I'd love to talk to him on the podcast about, in quite an evangelical Pentecostal style of church with the big extravagant giving as a part of what that church culture was. Being as a 16-year-old, he dropped, it was like $800 or $900 at a conference to some organisation, and then long story short, it turns out that the guy was faking having cancer the whole time and ripped a whole bunch of people off. But like getting swept up into that, like, dude, don't worry about money. Money's not an issue. Like God will provide. Just give beyond your means, like the woman who gave the 2 mites. And God will turn that into an incredible thing. Sure, but where's the line between faith and stupidity? Do you know? Like And I guess that's the whole nature of faith is you don't know. You don't know where the net is, and if the net exists, you got to jump, right? But the thing that freaks me out and stresses me out is like, especially with like giving, not just at Christmas, but whether it's in tithing at church or social justice stuff or whatever. With the money thing, I find that really, and this is a me thing, this is something that I'm still figuring out, but I find that really challenging, and I bristle a bit when I hear people using theology to back up, like, no, give beyond what you're capable of giving.
Yeah.
And I think there's ties between that and the culture of you got to buy gifts for everyone at Christmas, like the consumerism element of that, where with, you know, the Black Friday sales and the Boxing Day sales and everything, like, oh, just buy because you got to buy gifts for everyone. And, you know, some people like organising their whole first half of the financial year around, we've got to be able to afford gifts for everyone. How have we got to that point? I wonder. Yeah, it's just something doesn't feel right about it, you know. And so, I actually think what I'm kind of realizing more and more is giving experiences can be really, 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 really valuable to people.
Yeah, I agree.
So instead of going, I've got to find them like a shitty tea towel and a mug or something. No, take them out to a nice dinner in January.
Yeah,
like, you know,
come over.
Write up a nice card, like print it on some good card and put it in an envelope and put some effort in, and then they get to open it and they go, can't wait.
I know.
And then and kind of what we were talking about before with like the spirit of what we kind of think about Christmas as representing can continue on, not just for that 2 weeks at the end of December. Yeah. You know?
One of the most beautiful gifts that I've got that I still bring out if I'm feeling sad about my dad is for a birthday, he sent me a card. It was a beautiful card. But inside it, he'd painted me 2 little paintings, just miniature paintings on paper. And he's an artist and he signed them and loved Dad and put them into the card. It's the most beautiful gift. And that just cost Dad 35 cents for the stamp or 40 cents, whatever a stamp costs. And his time to draw that for me. That is a gift from heaven. Yeah, something I really treasure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think for listeners, I think that's the right time of year to be kind of considering this stuff. And I just encourage you watching, listening, whatever you're doing, to really try not to get sucked into the stress cyclone that is the Christmas rush.
And the hype of it all. Advertising's so alluring.
Yeah, do something meaningful for someone.
Like I just want to go to Peter Alexander and buy pyjamas because I keep seeing the ad. I don't need any, but the ad looks so juicy that I want to look like them. I want a big ponytail and I want those jammies too.
Is it the ponytail or the jammies?
All of it. And a candle with it as well. I want the whole shoot and match, brother. Yeah, I do. And so don't get sucked into that, peeps. Yeah, I truly would. It's hard. It's hard, but you've got to be diligent.
Yeah.
Merry pre-Christmas.
Merry pre-Christmas. One side of my family have this quite hilarious thing where when we get together to celebrate people's birthdays, it's rarely actually on the day of the birthday, so we say happy unbirthday.
Oh, I love happy unbirthday.
So merry unchristmas.
Yeah, merry unchristmas, Jonty.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week with some more filthy hope when we hopefully are feeling less like death. The both of us, we got through it. Oh, I need to lie down. We had one camera die. We're getting through it. Oh.
Are we done now?
I think we're done. See ya.
Bye.
This is a prayer for the people who want to give up, who have been hurt beyond repair and cannot bear to see your face in anything. Find peace in letting go of the guilt that isn't yours, and find hope in understanding. Life is not a game you have to win. Forgiveness overwhelming, salvation not deserving.